The sun was setting over the city skyline as a black luxury sedan pulled up to the grand entrance of the Royal Crown Hotel. The doorman rushed to open the car door, but his smile faded slightly when he saw who stepped out. A tall man with deep brown skin emerged from the back seat, dressed in simple jeans and a plain black t-shirt. He had been traveling for almost 20 hours straight, flying back from business meetings in Singapore. His usual tailored suits remained packed in his luggage. Andre Taylor, the 45-year-old founder and CEO of Crown Hospitality Group, rolled his shoulders to ease the stiffness from the long flight. What most people didn't know about Andre was that despite owning one of the largest luxury hotel chains in the country, he preferred to keep a low profile. He rarely announced his visits to his own properties, believing that the true measure of his hotel's quality was how they treated everyday guests, not just VIPs who were expected. "Thank you," Andre said with a tired smile as the doorman hesitantly held the door. The doorman nodded but didn't offer the usual warm greeting that Andre had observed from a distance on previous visits. The lobby of the Royal Crown was truly magnificent. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, casting a warm glow over marble floors so polished they reflected like mirrors. Plush velvet seating areas were arranged throughout the space, and the gentle sound of piano music floated through the air. This was the flagship hotel of his company, the crown jewel that had taken 5 years to design and build from the ground up. Andre paused for a moment, taking it all in. He felt a surge of pride looking at what he had created from nothing. 20 years ago, he had been working as a hotel bellhop, saving every penny while putting himself through business school at night. Now he owned 27 hotels across the globe. The Royal Crown, however, was special. It was located in the same city where he had grown up in a small apartment with his grandmother, who had raised him after his parents died. As he approached the front desk, Andre noticed how the staff greeted the guests ahead of him. Warm smiles, attentive service, offers of welcome drinks, exactly the standard of service he expected. He waited patiently in line, purposely keeping his phone in his pocket rather than checking emails. Tonight he was just another guest. This was how he conducted his surprise quality checks. When it was finally his turn, Andre stepped up to the desk with a friendly smile. "Good evening," he said to the woman behind the counter. Her name tag read Patricia. She looked up briefly, then back down at her computer. "How can I help you?" Patricia asked, her tone noticeably cooler than it had been with the previous guests. "I'd like to check in, please," Andre replied, still smiling, despite the chilly reception. "I don't have a reservation, but I was hoping you might have a room available for the night." Patricia's fingers tapped on her keyboard. Without looking up, she said, "I'm sorry, we're fully booked tonight." Andre glanced at the electronic board behind her that displayed room availability. According to the clearly visible screen, the hotel had at least 15 vacant rooms, including 3 suites. "Are you sure? Your system seems to show availability," he said politely, gesturing toward the screen. Patricia quickly reached over and adjusted the monitor so it was no longer visible from Andre's angle. "Those rooms are reserved," she said curtly. "Perhaps you'd like to try the Budget Inn about 10 blocks from here. They usually have vacancies." Andre felt a familiar weight settling in his chest. He'd experienced this kind of treatment before many times throughout his life, but never at his own hotel, a space he had created specifically to welcome everyone with equal respect and dignity. "I'd prefer to stay here," he said calmly. "Could I speak with a manager, please?" Patricia's expression hardened. "The manager is busy with important guests at the moment." "I'm happy to wait," Andre replied. "Sir, as I've explained, we have no vacancies. I'm going to have to ask you to move along. There are other people waiting." She gestured to the empty space behind him. There was no one there. Andre noticed a younger man at the other end of the counter hurriedly checking in a white couple who had arrived after him. They were being offered complimentary champagne and an upgrade to a junior suite, one of the very room types that was supposedly unavailable. Taking a deep breath, Andre tried once more. "I understand you're busy, but I really would appreciate speaking with whoever is in charge." Patricia's finger hovered over a button under the desk, the silent security alert. "Sir, if you continue to make a scene, I'll need to call security." Just as the tension was building, a housekeeper pushing a cart of linens passed by. She glanced over, did a double take, and nearly dropped the stack of towels she was carrying. "Mr. Taylor?" she exclaimed, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Oh my goodness, we weren't expecting you tonight." Is everything all right? The color drained from Patricia's face as her hand slowly retreated from the security button. The name had registered. Andre Taylor, the owner of not just this hotel but the entire international chain. The quiet man in jeans and a t-shirt who had been deemed unworthy of service at the front desk was, in fact, their boss. The front desk fell silent as Patricia stood frozen, her mouth slightly open but no words coming out. The young couple who had just been upgraded looked over curiously. The housekeeper, a woman named Linda who had been with the company since Andre's first small hotel 15 years ago, rushed over with a bright smile. "Mr. Taylor, it's so good to see you. Did they know you were coming?" Linda asked, genuinely delighted to see him. "They didn't," Andre replied with a small smile. That was kind of the point. He turned back to Patricia, whose face had taken on an ashen quality. "I believe you were about to call security. Please go ahead. I'd like to see how they handled the situation as well." Patricia's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the phone instead. I'll call the manager right away, Mr. Taylor." "Thank you," Andre said, his voice even. "And while you're at it, please call Robert Chen too." The regional director?" Patricia stammered. "Yes, I think we need to have a conversation about the guest experience at this location, all aspects of it." Within minutes, the atmosphere in the lobby had completely transformed. Staff members appeared from every direction, suddenly attentive and solicitous. The manager on duty, a woman named Veronica, rushed down from her office, her face flushed with embarrassment and concern. "Mr. Taylor, we had no idea you were visiting today," Veronica exclaimed, extending her hand. Her smile was strained, her eyes darting nervously toward Patricia. "Clearly," Andre replied, shaking her hand firmly. "I'd like to use the main conference room, please. Could you gather all available staff members for an immediate meeting? Anyone who's currently serving guests can join when they're free." "Of course, right away," Veronica nodded, already pulling out her radio to make the necessary arrangements. As staff hurried to prepare for the impromptu meeting, Andre stood in the center of his beautiful lobby, feeling strangely out of place in the hotel he owned. He watched as guests were checked in efficiently, each one greeted with warm smiles and excellent service. The contrast to his own experience minutes earlier was stark and troubling. Linda, the housekeeper who had recognized him, approached cautiously. "Mr. Taylor, would you like some coffee while you wait? You look tired from traveling." Her genuine concern touched him. "That would be wonderful, Linda, thank you." "I'm sorry about what happened," she said quietly, glancing toward the front desk. "That's not what we're about. Not what you taught us," Andre nodded. "I know. That's why we need to talk about it." The conference room filled quickly as staff from various departments filed in, whispering among themselves. News traveled fast in hotels, and everyone had already heard about the incident at the front desk. Some looked concerned, others confused. A few of the newer employees didn't even recognize Andre until they were told he was the founder and CEO. Robert Chen, the regional director, arrived breathless 15 minutes later, having rushed from his home across town. "Andre, I came as soon as I got the call," he said, foregoing formality in his distress. "What happened?" "Let's discuss it with everyone," Andre replied, gesturing toward the now full conference room. As they entered, the room fell silent. Nearly 50 employees were packed inside, with more waiting to cycle in when others returned to their posts. Patricia sat in the front row, eyes downcast, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Andre took a moment to look around the room, making eye contact with as many staff members as possible. These were his employees. This was his company. What had just happened at the front desk went against everything he had built his business on. "For those who don't know me, my name is Andre Taylor," he began, his voice steady. "I founded Crown Hospitality Group 20 years ago with a simple mission: to create spaces where every single person feels welcomed, valued, and respected." He paced slowly across the front of the room, choosing his words carefully. "Tonight, I arrived at this hotel, our flagship property, after a 20-hour flight from Singapore. I was tired. I was dressed comfortably for travel, and I was refused service at my own hotel." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some staff members looked shocked, others embarrassed. "I want to be very clear about something," Andre continued. "This isn't just about me. I'm standing here able to address this situation because I own this building. But what about the guests who don't? What about the people who save up for months to stay at a luxury hotel for a special occasion, only to be treated as if they don't belong. The room was completely silent now. The issue isn't that you didn't recognize me. The issue is that it shouldn't matter who I am. Every person who walks through those doors deserves the same level of respect and service, regardless of what they're wearing, what they look like, or where they might come from. Robert Chen stood in the back of the room, his expression grave. As the regional director, this failure reflected on his leadership as well. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," Andre said, his gaze briefly meeting Patricia's. "But I am here to address a serious problem. What I experienced tonight was discrimination, plain and simple, and it happened in a place where I've explicitly created policies to prevent it." The conference room remained silent as Andre continued to address his staff. The only sound was the occasional shifting in seats as employees absorbed the gravity of the situation. The air felt heavy with tension and discomfort. "I built this company from nothing," Andre said, his voice now softer but no less intense. "My grandmother cleaned hotel rooms for 40 years. She taught me that the measure of any business is how it treats people when no one important is watching. Tonight you thought no one important was watching." He paused, letting the words sink in. Patricia, the front desk clerk who had denied him service, kept her gaze fixed on her hands. Nearby, Veronica, the manager on duty, looked physically ill. "I want to show you something," Andre said, nodding to Robert Chen. The regional director stepped forward with a tablet and connected it to the room's projection system. "Our security cameras capture every interaction in our public spaces," Andre explained as the screen came to life. "This is standard practice at all our properties. It protects both our guests and our staff. It also gives us a clear record of how service is delivered." The room watched in uncomfortable silence as the footage played. From the overhead angle, everyone could clearly see Andre approaching the front desk. They saw Patricia's body language change instantly, the subtle stiffening, the lack of eye contact, the dismissive gestures. Then came the contrast. The same clerk's warm, welcoming demeanor with the couple who arrived after him. "Now, let's watch a few more interactions from earlier today," Andre said. Robert queued up several more clips showing Patricia and other front desk staff interacting with various guests. A pattern quickly emerged. Guests with darker skin consistently received briefer, cooler interactions. They were less likely to be offered upgrades or complimentary services. The bias wasn't always dramatic, but it was unmistakably present. Andre stopped the video. "This isn't about one bad interaction or one employee having a difficult day. This is a pattern, and it stops now." He moved to stand directly in front of his staff, his expression resolute but not angry. "I have some difficult decisions to make tonight, but first I want to hear from you. I want to understand how we got here." The room remained silent for several long moments before Linda, the housekeeper who had recognized him, slowly raised her hand. "Mr. Taylor, if I may," she began hesitantly. "I've been here since this hotel opened. I've seen things, small things that didn't seem right, but I didn't speak up. None of us did. And that's on all of us." An older gentleman in a maintenance uniform nodded in agreement. "There's been talk in break rooms, comments about certain guests. It starts small, you know. A joke here, an eye roll there, but it creates a culture." Slowly, more staff began to share their observations. It became clear that while official company policy promoted equality and respect, the daily reality had drifted far from those ideals. Some department heads had ignored complaints. Training on unconscious bias had become a perfunctory box to check rather than a meaningful practice. As the conversation continued, Robert Chen approached Andre and whispered something in his ear. Andre nodded gravely. "I've just been informed," Andre announced, "that we've received 7 formal complaints in the past 3 months from guests who felt they were discriminated against based on their appearance or ethnicity. These complaints were flagged in our system but never escalated to regional management." He turned to Veronica, the manager on duty. "Is this true?" Veronica's face flushed. We handled them at the local level. Offered upgrades, comped meals. The standard recovery protocol." "Recovery isn't the same as prevention," Andre replied, his disappointment evident. "Those guests should never have had that experience in the first place. And their concerns should have been taken seriously enough to address the root cause." He looked around the room again. Some staff members couldn't meet his eyes. Others seemed relieved that these issues were finally being acknowledged openly. "Here's what's going to happen," Andre said firmly. "As of this moment, Patricia and Veronica, Your employment with Crown Hospitality Group is terminated. Patricia's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock despite having surely anticipated this outcome. Veronica began to protest but stopped when Andre raised his hand. The head of HR will contact you tomorrow to discuss severance terms, he continued. I don't make this decision lightly, but leadership positions come with greater responsibility. The culture of discrimination that developed here happened under your watch, Veronica, and was actively perpetuated by your actions, Patricia. He turned to address the entire room again. As for the rest of the staff, I'm implementing a complete operational review of this property. Robert will remain on site as interim manager for the next 30 days. During that time, every employee will participate in comprehensive anti-bias training, not as a checkbox exercise, but as the beginning of a fundamental change in how we operate. The weight of his words settled over the room. Some staff members looked relieved, others anxious about what this meant for their future. I'm not firing everyone. Despite what rumors might already be circulating, Andre clarified, noticing the fear on many faces. What I am doing is resetting our culture. Those of you who share our core values of dignity and respect for all people will continue to have a place here. Those who cannot or will not uphold these values will need to find employment elsewhere. He paused, making eye contact with various staff members around the room. I believe most of you are good people who want to do the right thing. Sometimes good people stay silent when they should speak up. Sometimes they go along with things they know aren't right, because it seems easier than challenging the status quo. Today is your opportunity to choose differently. Linda spoke up again from her seat. Mr. Taylor, thank you for not giving up on us. Some bosses would have just cleaned house entirely. Andre nodded appreciatively. This hotel isn't just a building or a business to me. It's a dream that began when I was carrying bags as a bellhop 20 years ago. I'm not willing to give up on that dream, or on the people who can help make it reality. As the meeting continued, plans were made for the days ahead. Patricia and Veronica quietly left the room, escorted by security to collect their personal belongings. Outside the conference room windows, the city lights twinkled against the night sky. Guests moved through the lobby below, unaware of the significant changes happening within the company that owned the beautiful space they were enjoying. For Andre, this painful evening was not an ending but a beginning, a chance to rebuild his flagship hotel into the truly welcoming place he had always intended it to be. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the presidential suite, where Andre had spent the night after the tumultuous events at the front desk. He stood by the window, cup of coffee in hand, looking out at the city awakening below. His phone had been buzzing non-stop with messages from the executive team at headquarters, all anxiously awaiting details about what had transpired. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Robert Chen entered, carrying a thick folder and looking as though he hadn't slept much. Good morning, Andre, Robert said, setting the folder on the coffee table. I've been reviewing everything as you requested. It's worse than we initially thought. Andre sighed deeply, moving to sit across from his regional director. Tell me. Robert opened the folder, revealing printouts of guest reviews, internal reports, and staff surveys. The issues weren't isolated to the front desk. We found evidence of discriminatory practices in room assignments, restaurant seating, and even hiring. The management team here has been systematically burying complaints and manipulating guest satisfaction scores. Andre picked up one of the reports, skimming through highlighted sections. How did we miss this, Robert? We have systems in place specifically designed to catch these problems. Robert looked down, clearly uncomfortable. The previous regional manager was close friends with Veronica. I've only been in this position for 2 months. When I started noticing discrepancies in the reports, I began digging deeper, but he trailed off. The implication clear. He hadn't acted quickly enough. Andre placed the report back on the table. We're both responsible for this failure. Me most of all. This is my company, my vision. I should have been more vigilant. What are you planning to do? Robert asked. The executive team is expecting a decision about next steps. Andre leaned back, considering his options carefully. I meant what I said last night. This isn't about punishing people. It's about rebuilding the culture from the ground up. He stood and paced the room, thinking aloud. First, I want a complete leadership change at this property. We'll bring in Diane from our Boston location to serve as the new general manager. She's the best we have when it comes to creating an inclusive environment. Robert nodded, making notes. She'll be reluctant to leave Boston, but if anyone can fix this, it's Diane. Next, Andre continued, I want a complete review of all staff. Not to look for reasons to fire people, but to identify those who have been trying to uphold our values despite the toxic environment. Those people are our future leaders. His phone buzzed again. The company's public relations director, no doubt anxious about potential media coverage if word got out about what had happened. We're not going to hide this, Robert, Andre said firmly. In fact, we're going to do the opposite. I want to use this as a case study throughout the entire organization. Every property, every department needs to understand how quickly things can go wrong when we stop paying attention to our core values. Robert looked surprised. You want to publicize this internally? The PR team will have a fit. Let them, Andre replied. I didn't build this company by worrying about appearances. I built it by focusing on doing the right thing. Andre's decision was unconventional, but it reflected his leadership philosophy. By mid-afternoon, he had convened a video conference with all general managers across the company. With remarkable candor, he shared what had happened and the systematic problems that had been uncovered. I was refused service at our flagship property because of how I look, he told his leadership team, many of whom appeared visibly shocked. If that can happen to me, the owner of the company, imagine what ordinary guests might experience. This stops today at every property. The announcement of Diane's appointment as the new general manager came with a company-wide initiative. For the next 6 months, executives and managers would conduct regular anonymous guest visits to all properties. They would arrive unannounced, dressed in casual clothes, and observe how they were treated compared to other guests. By evening, Andre met with the remaining staff at the hotel. Many looked nervous, uncertain about their futures with the company. I know you're worried, Andre began, addressing the group gathered in the same conference room as the night before. But I want to be clear. This is an opportunity for genuine change, not just for this hotel but for our entire organization. He outlined his plans for the property, including the appointment of Diane as general manager, the comprehensive anti-bias training program that would be implemented, and the creation of a new guest feedback system specifically focused on equal treatment. Some of you might be wondering why I'm investing so much in fixing this problem rather than simply starting over with a new team, Andre said, looking around the room. The answer is simple because that's the easy way out. And meaningful change rarely comes from taking the easy path. Linda, the housekeeper who had recognized him the previous night, raised her hand. What can we do as regular staff members to help make things better? Andre smiled at her question. That's exactly the right attitude, Linda. First, speak up when you see something wrong. Second, remember that every interaction with a guest is an opportunity to make them feel valued. And third, hold each other accountable, gently but firmly. As the meeting concluded, Andre announced one more significant change. Beginning next month, we're implementing a new bonus structure. 20% of all management bonuses will be tied directly to scores on our enhanced guest satisfaction surveys, with specific emphasis on ratings for felt welcomed and treated with respect. This announcement caused a stir among the department heads present. Financial incentives had a way of focusing attention like nothing else. Outside the conference room, Andre paused to look at a photograph hanging on the wall, a picture taken on the day the hotel had opened 5 years earlier. He stood in the center, surrounded by the original team, all smiling proudly. The hotel had been his dream, the physical manifestation of how far he had come from his days as a bellhop. We'll get back to that, he said quietly to himself. We'll be better than before. 6 months had passed since the night Andre Taylor was refused service at his own hotel. The autumn leaves were turning golden outside the large windows of the newly renovated lobby of the Royal Crown Hotel. The space had been physically transformed, brighter, more open, with artwork from diverse local artists adorning the walls. But the most significant changes weren't visible to the casual observer. Andre sat in one of the comfortable chairs in the lobby, dressed in jeans and a simple button-up shirt, watching the flow of guests and staff. No one approached him with special deference. Most of the newer employees didn't even recognize him. That was exactly as he wanted it. Diane, the new general manager recruited from Boston, spotted him from across the lobby and came over with 2 cups of coffee. Unlike her predecessor, Diane made a point of spending time in public areas, observing and interacting with both guests and staff. "Enjoying the show?" she asked, handing him one of the coffees. Andre smiled. "Very much so. The transformation is remarkable," and it was. Over the past 6 months, the Royal Crown had undergone a complete cultural reinvention. The anti-bias training program had been just the beginning. Under Diane's leadership, the hotel had implemented a series of changes that had rippled throughout the entire Crown Hospitality Group. The front desk team now reflected the diversity of their city. Speaking 12 different languages collectively, the anonymous guest program had been formalized, with trained evaluators from various backgrounds staying regularly at all Crown properties to assess how different guests were treated. Most importantly, staff at all levels were now empowered to speak up when they witnessed inequitable treatment. "The latest satisfaction scores came in this morning," Diane said, pulling out her tablet to show Andre. "We've hit 96% on the felt welcomed metric. That's the highest in the company." Andre nodded appreciatively. "And employee satisfaction?" "Up 24% from 6 months ago," Diane replied. "Turns out people actually want to work in a place where fairness is more than just a poster in the break room." A young man approached the front desk nearby, his clothes rumpled from travel, his hair disheveled. Andre watched closely as the clerk greeted him with genuine warmth, offered him a welcome drink, and processed his check-in efficiently. The same level of service he had observed being given to more polished-looking guests all morning. "We've had 3 other hotel groups reach out about our training program," Diane mentioned, following Andre's gaze. "Word is spreading about what we're doing here." This had been an unexpected but welcome development. The candid way Andre had addressed the problems. At the Royal Crown, first internally and then in a thoughtful interview with a leading hospitality industry publication, had turned a potential PR disaster into a case study in corporate accountability and cultural change. "Linda's been instrumental in all of this," Diane added. "I promoted her to guest experience specialist last month." Andre smiled at the mention of Linda, the housekeeper who had recognized him that fateful night. "That's perfect for her. She always understood what real hospitality means." They were interrupted by Robert Chen, who joined them with a folder tucked under his arm. As regional director, he had taken his share of responsibility for the previous failures and had worked tirelessly alongside Diane to implement the changes. The executive team approved the expansion of the program, Robert announced, unable to contain his excitement. "We're rolling out the comprehensive training and accountability measures to all 27 properties over the next year." This was the news Andre had been waiting for. What had begun as a painful personal experience was now driving meaningful change throughout the entire organization. "What happened to Patricia?" Andre asked suddenly. The front desk clerk who had refused him service had rarely crossed his mind in recent months. "She's working at the Marriott across town," Robert replied. "Veronica left the industry altogether, I believe." Andre nodded, feeling no satisfaction in their departures but recognizing the necessity of the decision he had made that night. A family entered the lobby, parents with 2 teenage children, all wearing casual clothes and carrying backpacks that marked them as tourists rather than business travelers. Andre watched as they were greeted with the same attentiveness he had observed all day. No hesitation, no subtle changes in body language or tone. Just genuine hospitality. That's what it's all about," he said quietly. As the afternoon stretched on, Andre continued his anonymous observation from various spots around the hotel. He visited the restaurant, where he noted that guests were no longer seated according to any discernible pattern based on appearance. He walked through the halls, watching housekeeping staff interact respectfully with every guest they encountered. He even deliberately asked a staff member who didn't recognize him for directions to the business center, receiving helpful, courteous assistance. Later, Diane invited him to sit in on the daily staff meeting, a practice she had instituted to ensure open communication across departments. The difference from 6 months ago was striking. Staff members actively participated, raising concerns and offering solutions. There was laughter, camaraderie, and a palpable sense of shared purpose. When the meeting ended, Andre asked to say a few words. Most of the newer employees looked surprised to learn he was the founder and CEO. 6 months ago, something happened in this hotel that could have destroyed everything we had built, he told them. Instead, It became the catalyst for making us better than we ever were. Before, he looked around the room at the diverse faces, watching him attentively. The true measure of a company isn't found in its profit margins, or even its guest satisfaction scores. It's found in how people feel when they walk through our doors, both guests and employees. Do they feel valued, respected, welcome? If the answer is yes for everyone, regardless of what they look like or where they come from, then we've succeeded. After the meeting, Andre walked through the lobby one last time before departing for his next destination. The Royal Crown was once again the flagship he had always envisioned. Not just a luxury hotel, but a place that stood for something meaningful. Outside, the sun was setting over the city. Andre paused to look back at the building, its windows glowing warmly in the gathering dusk. The painful experience that had occurred there had led to transformation that extended far beyond one hotel or one night. As he stepped into his waiting car, Andre reflected that sometimes the most important lessons came from the most difficult moments. His grandmother had taught him that long ago, when he was just a boy with dreams of someday owning the hotels she cleaned. When something breaks, she used to tell him, you can throw it away or you can fix it and make it stronger than it was before. The Royal Crown was stronger now, and so was he.